Page 149. Dolan is a source for certain information in the Steele Report. At least one allegation contained in the Steele Report dated August 22, 2016, reflected information that Danchenko collected directly from Charles Dolan. In particular, that report detailed the August 2016 resignation of Trump's campaign manager Manafort and his allegedly strained relationship with Corey Lewandowski. The allegation in the Steele Report stated, page 150, close associate of Trump explains reasoning behind Manafort's recent resignation. Ukraine revelations played part, but others wanted Manafort out for various reasons, especially Lewandowski, who remains influential. Speaking separately, also in late August 2016, an American political figure associated with Donald Trump and his campaign outlined the reasons behind Manafort's recent demise. Here she said it was true that the Ukraine corruption revelations had played a part in this, but also several senior players close to Trump had wanted Manafort out, primarily to loosen his control on strategy and policy formulation. Of particular importance in this regard was Manafort's predecessor as a campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, who hated Manafort personally and remained close to Trump, with whom he discussed the presidential campaign on a regular basis. End of the report entry. This Steele report contained information that Danchenko had gathered directly from Dolan in response to a specific request. In particular, on August 19, 2016, Danchenko emailed Dolan to solicit any thought, rumor, or allegation about Manafort. In the email, Danchenko also informed Dolan that he, Danchenko, was working on a, quote, project against Trump. It continues, could you please ask someone to comment on Paul Manafort's resignation and anything on Trump campaign? Off the record, of course. Any thought, rumor, allegation. I am working on a related project against Trump. I asked U.S. person 2 3 months ago, but he didn't say much, although shared a couple of valuable insights. Thanks a lot. Best, Igor. Danchenko's referenced U.S. person 2, a Republican lobbyist and acquaintance of Dolan, who was present at the meeting between Dolan and Galkina in March 2016 regarding the proposed business venture between K-Global and Servers.com. In connection with a voluntary interview by the office, U.S. person 2 provided an email which appears to be referenced by Danchenko above, which stated in part, I have a question about Viktor Yanukovych and Dmitry Firtash, former Ukrainian president and former gas oligarch respectively, and some Russian oligarchs. The relationship is mentioned, for example, here, and then they give the internet address. My question is, my friends in England, in context still, have heard that a number of oligarchs, including Oleg Deripaska, Suleiman Karimov, and Dmitry Firtash, made certain investments in the U.S. real estate, maybe other sectors, and that then they made various loans, in quotes, quote, goodwill payments, etc., coincidentally in the summer of 2008, just in the run-up to the presidential election, where Mr. Manafort and also Richard Davis were working for the Republican candidate. Was that the case? What were they trying to achieve? Can these payments, if existed, be viewed as political contributions? I understand it is a sensitive question. I'll be happy to discuss it or other perhaps more general things over a coffee at any time. At my end, I'll be happy to share insights on Russia/FSU. Thanks a lot. Kind regards, Igor. When interviewed by the FBI in September 2017, Steele stated that his initial entree into U.S. election-related material dealt with Paul Manafort's connections to Russian and Ukrainian oligarchs. In particular, Steele told the FBI that Manafort owed significant money to these oligarchs and several other Russians. At this time, Steele was working for a different client, Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, often referred to as Putin's oligarch in media reporting on a separate litigation-related issue. This information comports with Danchenko's inquiries to U.S. Person 2 in April 2016. As mentioned above, U.S. Person 2's name was provided by Steele during the October 2016 interview with the FBI as an individual who would have information regarding Trump's connections to Russia. It continued, in any event, August 19, Dolan replied to Danchenko, stating in part, let me dig around on Manafort. Pretty sure the new team wanted him gone ASAP and used today's New York Times story to drive a stake in his heart. On August 20, 2016, Dolan emailed Danchenko the following. Hi, Igor. I had a drink with a GOP friend of mine who knows some of the players and got some of what is in this article. which provides even more detail. She also told me that Corey Lewandowski, who hates Manafort and still speaks to Trump regularly, played a role. He is said to be doing a happy dance over it. I think the bottom line is that in addition to the Ukraine revelations, a number of people wanted Manafort gone. It has also a very sharp, elbowless crowd. Dolan attached to the email a link to a political news article that discussed Manafort's resignation as the Trump campaign manager. Page 152. Later that day, Danchenko replied to Dolan's, expressing his appreciation for the information and stated that their goals clearly coincided with regard to Danchenko's efforts to gather derogatory information about Trump. Dear Chuck, thank you for this. Any additional insights will be much appreciated. It is an important project for me, and our goals clearly coincide. I've been following the Russia trail in Trump's campaign. It is there, so what you read in the news is hardly an exaggeration. Some things are less dramatic, while others are more than they seem. Dolan replied to Danchenko with the following: Thanks, I'll let you know if I hear anything else. Dolan provided this information regarding Manafort to Danchenko 2 days before it appeared in the August 22, 2016 Steele report. As reflected above, the information provided by Dolan was substantially the same as the information contained in the Steele report. In particular, Dolan claimed to have received the information from a GOP friend, whom the Steele report describes as a close associate of Trump. In his email, Dolan referred to Ukrainian revelations about Manafort, which the Steele report also refers to as Ukraine corruption revelations. Dolan's email stated that a number of people wanted Manafort gone, and the Steele report similarly stated that several senior players close to Trump had wanted Manafort out. And Dolan's email stated that Corey Lewandowski, who hates Manafort and still speaks to Trump regularly, played a role, and Manafort's departure, and the Steele report similarly stated that Manafort's departure was due to Corey Lewandowski, who hated Manafort personally and remained close to Trump. When interviewed by The Office, Dolan later acknowledged that he never met with a GOP friend in relation to the information that he passed to Danchenko, but rather fabricated the fact of the meeting in his communications with Danchenko. Dolan instead obtained the information about Manafort from public news sources. When interviewed by The Office, Dolan later acknowledged that he never met with a GOP friend in relation to the information that he passed to Danchenko, but rather fabricated the fact of the meeting in his communications with Danchenko. Dolan instead obtained the information about Manafort from public news sources. According to Dolan, he was not aware at the time of the specifics of Danchenko's project against Trump, or that Danchenko's reporting would later appear in the Steele reports. Dolan agreed that the information about Manafort contained in Steele Report 26105 appeared to be based on the information he provided to Danchenko. Dolan, however, denied that he had knowingly provided any additional information to Danchenko that appeared in the Steele reports, but acknowledged that it was possible that he could have been an unwitting source for the reports. Page 153. Nevertheless, as discussed below, Dolan appears to have had access to substantially similar information to that which would later appear in the Steele reports as well. The Callaghan allegation in Steele Report 2016-111. For example, in connection with the YPO conference, Dolan and U.S. Person 1 met with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak and Russian diplomat Callaghan, the head of the Russian Embassy's economics section in Washington. These meetings took place in May, July, and October 2016. According to Dolan, Danchenko was not present at these meetings. Following the meeting, on May 31, 2016, a member of Callaghan's staff, Maria Antonova, sent an email to Dolan and U.S. Person 1 telling them that, among other things, Callaghan would be returning to Moscow in September 2016 and would be replaced by another diplomat, Andrei Bondarev. Specifically, Antonova wrote, Mikhail Callaghan assumes that the right contact point at the MFA could be Mr. Andrei Bondarev, who is the deputy head of economics section in the ministry's Department of North America. Audrey will be replacing Mikhail here as the head of economic office this September, so it may be useful to start working with him now. Though we need to double-check first whether he will be in Moscow during your visit. We will get back to you when we have a reply. Danchenko was not a recipient of the email. On August 19, 2016, Callaghan sent an email to Dolan and others. The email stated in part, Dear colleagues and friends, after 6 years of foreign service in Washington, it feels very timely now to bid farewell and go back home to Moscow for embarking on my new endeavors. Let me also take this opportunity and introduce you to the new head of Economic Office, Counselor Mr. Andrei Bondarev. Many of you may remember that Mr. Bondarev since his previous appointment at the embassy a couple of years ago. Andrei is a talented diplomat and economist with impressive experience in American studies. I'm glad to leave you in such good company and have no doubts that you will find common ground very soon. Again, Danchenko was not a recipient of this email. Page 154. A Steele report dated September 14, 2016, contained the following allegation. Speaking separately to the same compatriot, a senior Russian MFA official reported that as a prophylactic measure, a leading Russian diplomat, Mikhail Kalugin, had been withdrawn from Washington on short notice because Moscow feared his heavy involvement in the U.S. presidential election operation, including the so-called veterans' pensions ruse reported previously, which would be exposed in the media there. His replacement, Andrei Bondarev, however, was clean in this regard. This allegation bore substantial similarities to information that Dolan received in May and August 2016 from a Russian embassy after staffer Maria Antonova and Kalugin himself, insofar as Dolan was aware that Kalugin was being replaced by Bondarev. Further records obtained by the office revealed that Dolan reached out to Danchenko on September 13, 2016, the day prior to the date of the Steele report. On the day of the call, Danchenko was initially in Russia, but later traveled to London. When interviewed by the FBI in January 2017, Danchenko stated that he had known Kalugin since 2014. Danchenko purported to learn the information about Kalugin's departure from Kalugin himself when the diplomat was allegedly assisting Danchenko in obtaining a new Russian passport. Danchenko further stated that Kalugin described his replacement, Andrei Bondarev, as a bright young guy. Danchenko also stated that his conversation with Kalugin took place in late spring 2016, which also happened to be the same time in which Dolan received the email from embassy staffer Maria Antonova indicating that Kalugin was being replaced in the ordinary course. A review of Danchenko's phone records, emails, and social media accounts do not indicate that Danchenko maintained a relationship with Kalugin. Moreover, during the January 2017 interviews, Danchenko provided the FBI with a business card for Kalugin. The business card contained a handwritten cell phone number on the card. When interviewed by the office, Dolan identified the handwriting on the business card as his own. When Steele was interviewed by the FBI in September 2017, he stated in sum that Danchenko told him that he, Danchenko, had learned of the Kalugin information after bumping into Kalugin on a Moscow street in August 2016, which was the same time that Dolan received the email from Kalugin indicating that he was leaving for Moscow and being placed by Andrew Bondarev. Page 155. However, the office's investigation has revealed that Danchenko was present in the United States during the entire month of August 2016. Steele further told the FBI that the information contained in Report 26-111 was derived from his primary subsources, Danchenko's direct contact with multiple subsources. These subsources included Alexei Pavlov, Deputy Press Secretary of the Russian Presidential Administration, Senior Ministry of Foreign Affairs personnel, and two other identified individuals. Steele did not identify the two other individuals. However, as noted above, Charles Dolan maintained a relationship with Alexei Pavlov, had attempted to reach out to Pavlov in connection with the YPO conference, and had met with two deputies from the press office during the June planning trip. Again, the office found no evidence showing that Danchenko met directly with Pavlov or had previously maintained a relationship with Pavlov. Indeed, in the months leading up to the YPO conference, it was Dolan, not Danchenko, who had reached out to Pavlov on behalf of both YPO and Olga Galkina. Dolan informed the office that he would be surprised if Galkina had any contacts in the Kremlin. When initially interviewed by the office, Dolan stated in sum that he was unsure if he told Danchenko about Kalugin being replaced by Bondarev, but that he had no specific recollection of doing so. In a later interview, Dolan stated in sum that he believed there was a low probability that he mentioned the Kalugin departure to Danchenko, but that he could not completely rule out the possibility. Nevertheless, February 9, 2018, Dolan sent the following email to 3 U.S.-based acquaintances. Dear boy, you must pay attention. And like your pal, the short-lived National Security Advisor General Flynn, I can remember meeting with Mr. Mikhail Kalugin several times and would be happy to come forward with details to the FBI and others. Page 156. There are several other points in the dossier that are true. Let me know if you need additional clarification. Dolan attached to the email a BBC News article titled Trump-Russia Dossier Key Claim Verified. In the article, BBC journalist Paul Wood stated that sources I know and trust have told me the U.S. government identified Callaghan as a spy while he was still at the embassy. In this email, Dolan appears to volunteer that he possesses inside information on the Steele Report allegations concerning Callaghan, as well as other information pertaining to the veracity of additional Steele Report allegations. The Ivanov allegation contained in Steele Report 2016-111. An additional allegation appeared in the same Steele Report as the Callaghan allegation, concerned the firing of Sergei Ivanov, the then Chief of Staff of the Russian presidential administration. The allegation stated in part, Putin had been receiving conflicting advice on interfering from three separate and expert groups. On one side had been the Russian ambassador to the U.S., Sergei Kislyak, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, together with an independent and informal network run by presidential foreign policy advisor Yuri Ashakov, Kislyak's predecessor in Washington, who had urged caution and the potential negative impact on Russia from the operations. On the other side was former PA head Sergei Ivanov, backed by Russian foreign intelligence C.F.R, who had advised Putin that the pro-Trump, anti-Clinton operations would be both effective and plausibly deniable with little blowback. The first groups had been proven right, and this had been the catalyst in Putin's decision to sack Ivanov unexpectedly as PA head in August. His successor, Anton Vaino, had been selected for the job partly because he had not been involved in the U.S. presidential election operations. This allegation coincided with information that Dolan had received from Galkina regarding changes in the Russian presidential administration in the weeks prior to the issuance of Steele Report 2016-111. In particular, on August 12, 2016, the same day that Ivanov was reportedly fired, Galkina sent a Facebook message to Dolan stating, Russian presidential administration is making significant changes right now. Danchenko was not copied on this message. Minutes later, Dolan and Galkina spoke for approximately 10 minutes. Page 156. On September 13, 2016, the day prior to the date of the Steele Report containing the Ivanov allegation, Dolan called Danchenko. As discussed above, at the time of this call, Danchenko was in Russia. When interviewed by the FBI in January 2017, the FBI asked Danchenko about the sourcing of this allegation. Danchenko stated that he learned about the allegation involving Ivanov from Galkina and two other friends. According to the FBI's interview report, Danchenko did not identify the two other friends, nor did he mention Dolan in connection with the allegation. The FBI interview report does not state whether Danchenko was asked to provide the names of the two other friends. When interviewed by the FBI in September 2017, Steele stated that the information in this report was derived from Danchenko's direct contact with multiple subsources, including Alexei Pavlov. When interviewed by the office, Dolan initially stated that he never discussed Russian politics with Galkina. When confronted with the Facebook exchange regarding the shakeup in the Russian presidential administration, Dolan stated that it was possible that he had spoken to Galkina about Ivanov being fired, but again had no specific recollection of doing so. The YPO Conference, October 2016. On September 30, 2016, U.S. Person 1 sent Dolan the final draft agenda for the YPO conference. Dolan replied, "Thanks, we'll send to Peskov." Thereafter, in early October 2016, Dolan and Danchenko made their way separately to Moscow for the YPO conference. During the January 2017 interviews, Danchenko informed the FBI that he did not collect any information for Steele during the YPO conference. Steele, however, told the FBI that, in fact, two reports, 2016-130 and 2016-132, are comprised of information that Danchenko purported to gather during the YPO conference. In any event, the YPO conference featured several Russian government officials, including Konstantin Kosachev, a senior member of the Russian Duma parliament, and Mikhail Kalugin, a member of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and as discussed above, formerly assigned to the Russian embassy in Washington. Page 158. Andrei Bondarev, another member of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and as discussed above, the diplomat who replaced Callaghan in Washington, was listed as a point of contact for the conference. Dolan informed the office that during the conference he sat next to Kosachev. A Steele report dated October 20, 2016, less than 2 weeks after the YPO conference, contained the following allegation. The Kremlin insider went on to identify leading pro-Putin Duma figure, Konstantin Kosachev, head of the Foreign Relations Committee, as an important figure in the Trump campaign, Kremlin liaison operation Kosachev, also plausible deniable being part of the Russian legislature rather than executive, had facilitated the contact in Prague and by implication may have attended the meeting with Cohen there in August. During the January 2017 interviews, Danchenko stated the information in the Steele reports related to Cohen and Prague came from Galkina. This is consistent with what Steele informed the FBI during September 2017 interview. However, as discussed more below, when interviewed by the FBI in August 2017, Galkina denied knowing anything about a Cohen meeting in Prague. Indeed, the FBI found no evidence that Cohen had met Russian officials in Prague. Dolan's contact with Danchenko following the YPO conference. Upon returning from the YPO conference in early October 2016, Dolan and Danchenko continued to communicate. On October 8, 2016, Danchenko traveled from Moscow to London to meet with Christopher Steele. On October 9, 2016, Danchenko asked Dolan, who was still in Moscow, to purchase medication for him from a Russian pharmacy. Dolan agreed that he would collect the medicine and deliver it to Danchenko when he and Dolan returned to Washington, D.C., page 159. Therefore, on October 8, 2016, Danchenko and Dolan met at K Global's office in Washington, ostensibly for Danchenko to secure the medication from Dolan. The day following the meeting at K Global, two Steele reports were generated, 2016-135 and 2016-136. These reports alleged, among other things, that Cohen was heavily engaged in covering up Trump's ties to Russia, and specifically to contain further scandals involving Manafort and Page. As discussed above, this report, 2016-136, also contains reference to Konstantin Kosachev. In January 2017 interviews, Danchenko attributed this information to Galkina. Again, Galkina told the FBI that she was not aware of Cohen's alleged meeting in Prague. Later, on November 3, 2016, Dolan and Danchenko met for lunch in Washington, D.C. After that, on New Year's Day 2017, Danchenko and Dolan met in a park in Arlington, Virginia. When asked about the circumstances of the meeting, Dolan informed the office, in sum, that he was looking at Facebook and he noticed that Danchenko had posted a picture with his daughter in the park. Dolan stated that since the park was close to his house, he decided to drive over to meet Danchenko. On the evening of January 10, 2017, BuzzFeed became the first media outlet to publish the Steele reports. On the morning of January 11, 2017, Dolan called Danchenko. Dolan stated that he called Danchenko because he had suspicion that Danchenko was behind the Steele reports based on the fact that, among other things, he learned it was a London operation, and he knew that Danchenko did due diligence for work for Orbis, which was based in London. Dolan also thought Galkina might have been a source for Danchenko given her employment at Servers.com. During the call, Danchenko told Dolan in sum that he did not know who was behind the reports, but that he would let Dolan know if he came across any information. Page 160. According to Dolan, the January 11, 2017 call was the last time he had contact with Danchenko. On January 13, 2017, Dolan emailed a U.S.-based acquaintance the following. I've been interviewed by the Washington Post and the London Times 3 times over the last 2 days over the MI6 dossier in Trump, and I know the Russian agent who made the report. He used to work for me. A client in Cyprus has been accused of being a party that organized the hacking. Presently speaking with the barrister in London, who is filing a brief against former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele, has been unmasked as the man behind an explosive dossier about U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Also, in conversation with former British ambassador who knows Steele. Quite right. Oh, what a boring life. At the time the email was sent, Danchenko was not publicly known to be a source for Steele. When asked by the office why he referred to Danchenko as a Russian agent, Dolan initially said that he was being facetious, but then also elaborated that he had suspicion about Danchenko's ties to Russian intelligence. The FBI's failure to investigate Charles Dolan's role as a possible source for the Steele reports. Information from 4 Steele reports, 2016-080 and 2016-94, 2016-095, and 2016-102, was included in the 4 FISA applications targeting Page. As discussed above, the FBI was not able to corroborate a single substantive allegation in the Steele reports. Nevertheless, the Steele reports would form the foundation for the narrative that a U.S. presidential campaign was actively engaged in a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation with a foreign adversary. Danchenko was the primary source of information for this narrative that was weaved throughout the Steele reports. Indeed, as noted earlier, in his own words to an acquaintance, Danchenko stated that he collected some 80% of the raw intel and performed half the analysis for the Chris Steele dossier. Accordingly, Danchenko's relationship with Dolan and Dolan's proximity to key figures and events that appear in the Steele report should have been ample basis to, at a minimum, interview Dolan. However, as discussed below, Dolan was never interviewed, despite the suggestion from both Steele and Galkina that Dolan could have informed information related to the Steele reports and the detailed analysis undertaken by 2 FBI personnel assigned to the Mueller team. Danchenko's hesitancy to speak to the FBI about Charles Dolan. Danchenko did not mention Dolan to the FBI during the January 17 interviews, despite revealing Danchenko's participation in the YPO conference in October 2016. Page 161. Further, in a June 15, 2017 interview with Helson, which in part focused on Dolan, Danchenko only revealed that he was present with Dolan during the YPO conference in October 2016. Notably, Danchenko did not inform the FBI that he met with Dolan in Moscow during the June planning trip, a material omission given the fact that, according to Steele, Danchenko was collecting information for Steele during that trip. In a June 2017 interview, Danchenko was also asked if he had spoken to Dolan regarding any allegations contained in the Steele reports. Danchenko denied that Dolan provided any specific information related to the Steele reports. In particular, when Helson mentioned Dolan's name during a conversation about individuals who may have contributed to the Steele reports, the following exchange in part occurred. Helson: because obviously I don't think you are the only Danchenko, Helson, person that has been contributing. You may have said one, and this is the other thing we are trying to figure out. Helson: do you know Chuck Dolan? Danchenko: do I know Chuck Dolan? Yeah. Helson: how long have you known him? Helson, laughing. Approximately 15-second pause. Danchenko: I've known Chuck for, I don't know, a couple years maybe. Helson: a couple years? Danchenko: but I've known him for like 12 years. Helson: okay. Danchenko: 11 years, because he'd always come to Russia with Russian when he worked for Ketchum. Helson: okay. Danchenko: in like 2006, 2007. Helson: so that was how far back? Danchenko: yeah, when Helson: and what was with Ketchum? Danchenko: when, Helson: okay. Danchenko: Russia organized the G20, and he worked with Ketchum and on Russian power. Page 162. Helson: that would make sense. Danchenko: but he's a very nice guy. Helson: yes. Danchenko: yeah, he likes Russia. I don't think he would be any way be involved. But what I would think would be easily played. He's a bit naive in his liking of Russia. Helson: okay, so you had never talked to Chuck about anything that showed up in the dossier, right? Danchenko: no. Helson: you don't think so? Danchenko: no, we talked about it, related issues perhaps, but no, nothing specific. In a later part of the conversation, Danchenko informed Helson that Dolan had conducted business with Olga Galkina and Servers.com, and that Dolan maintained a professional relationship with Dmitry Peskov, the Russian PA press secretary. In his FBI reporting document detailing this interview, Helson observed that Danchenko was hesitant about acknowledging his association with Dolan. Indeed, when interviewed by the OIG in October 2018, Helson stated that in the course of his meetings with Danchenko, when I brought up Charles Dolan, it was very gray, not complete. Following the June 15, 2017 interview, Helson raised Dolan's name on several other occasions. For example, in an interview on October 23, 2017, Danchenko provided the names of several individuals, including Dolan, who concerned Danchenko because of their relationship with the Russian government. Danchenko characterized Dolan as having too many dubious connections to Russian government officials, including Dmitry Peskov and Alexei Pavlov. Additionally, in a December 2018 interview, Danchenko stated that Dolan had shared emails about Manafort's ties to Russia and Ukraine. Danchenko also stated that U.S. Person 2 was someone who may have known about the Danchenko's work on the Steele report, because Dolan would have confided in U.S. Person 2 about Danchenko. Helson documented the content of this meeting in an FBI reporting document. However, Danchenko provided no further information and context about Dolan or U.S. Person 1.